Hello and welcome to the Lockdown Railway Modelling Podcast. My name is Nicholas Garner and I'm joined here today by Fran. Fran, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Nick. My name is Fran Burke and I am the PR and Communications and Marketing Director of Accurascale and Irish Railway Models.
Okay. So Fran, the Accurascale brand stemmed from its sister brand Irish Rail Models, which formed in 2015. Was it a natural progression to enter into the UK model railway scene?
Yes and no. When we first started, it literally was a group of us who were doing this in our spare time. When we decided to do the first Irish wagon, we run an irishrailwaymodeler.com forum. So we came together and decided, we'll make a model railway wagon and see how it goes. And it went down really well. And then it kind of just snowballed from there. And we decided, well, the Irish market is quite small. And we all have an interest in the UK outline as well, because when we were growing up, there was no real Irish outline models. We all started off with Hornby train sets, Lima, and all that kind of stuff. And we all had all the magazines we'd buy would be like, whether it was model magazines like Railway Modeler and all that were obviously UK focused, and same with the prototype magazines like Rail and all that kind of stuff. So we had a good knowledge base of the UK scene, and we knew that the Irish market was not big enough to sustain us, but and we had the interest then in the UK scene. So we decided to naturally progress then into that. So when we first started, it was just something that we were doing in our spare time to serve our hobby. And then obviously when we see, well, we could make a business of this and we have interest further afield in Ireland, it felt like the most natural progression was to go into the UK market and, bring what we've done in the Irish markets there as well, which was obviously high quality, highly detailed wagons, and see how that goes. And obviously then we had the interest in the UK scene, so it was certainly the most natural progression for us to go there.
Are there any barriers or challenges with the UK model scene, which has some pretty stiff competition compared to manufacturing Irish outline models?
A new barrier, which has obviously been looming for the last 4 years, really the B word. We've had to do a lot of preparation behind the scenes for that, which is, I suppose, is more hurdle than, we're able to get over it, and then a flat out barrier. The other kind of challenge for us was, while we had big enthusiasm for the UK market, what we really needed was to recruit people who had serious prototype knowledge and also good contacts and research base. And what we've done with the Accurascale brand is bring on people who had worked previously with other model railway manufacturers, but also have a huge knowledge of UK prototype, whether it's current scene, modernization era, diesels and everything between, and now going further back into steam era. So we've now brought in knowledge base who just have that extra 5 or 10% of knowledge that we might not necessarily have ourselves. And that's where we've built a team now that can really give that knowledge base to us. When you're developing a model, you really, really have to do so much research. And I know a lot of kind of enthusiasts are into, I like doing a bit of research and stuff like that. But when you're doing a model, it's exhaustive. You have to go through absolutely everything to make sure you get it right. Because we obviously specialize, if you look at the Class 37, it's all the detailed variations. And, Garrett was looking and working on that project in his own spare time, even before he joined us. I mean, there's a huge, solid, many years have gone into the research of that particular locomotive, because we are obviously, because as you said, there's a very busy market, and there's lots of competitors. Not only do you have the established brands, but you have smaller brands that have popped up now. Obviously, we're all after trying to push the market forward. But the other way we believe about it as well is, if you introduce new excitement into the market and new kind of enthusiasm into really push the hobby forward, it grows the hobby. So what we think with Accurascale is more people will buy into the models because they're of high quality, and more people will gain an interest in it and say, oh, well, that's interesting, it's new, it's different, it has the latest technology. So it's about not only, if there is, you might see it as barriers, but we see it as an opportunity to grow the hobby, which I think benefits everyone, whether it's the customer or the manufacturers. And obviously really push things forward there as well, which helps stimulate growth and stuff like that. And the more excitement around the hobby, the more interest comes in it from people who mightn't necessarily looked at it before.
You talked about the exhaustive process for research. Is it also an enjoyable process for finding and researching the prototypes for the wagons? And what's it like to try and communicate with the train operating companies and wagon leasing companies to get scale drawings and visits to these wagons in real life?
Yeah, it's a very enjoyable. I mean, I've in my kind of career previously, I've worked around other interests that I've had and adapted my skills to it. So I worked around, I have a particular interest in sports, and I've had an interest in politics, and I've worked in both areas through my role. And I always found in roles where I have an interest in it, it becomes more than a job. You actually really enjoy your job. So the guys we have working for us who do the research really are passionate about railways and are really passionate about research and historical research, and it is part of our social history around transport and stuff like that. So they really enjoy doing the work that they do. Yes, it's exhaustive and it needs to go through this process and it takes a lot of time, but there's the thrill of the chase as well. It's trying to find certain drawings that you hear of. You get to meet new people and kind of find out their passions and stuff like that as well. And it's gaining that knowledge base that you think, well, actually, maybe a lot of people didn't know this before. We found that on some projects that, you know, there was these little variations or stuff were done, and you talk to people who worked on the real thing, you know, who either drove them or repaired them or shunted them or anything like that. And they can tell you so much information about it, but then obviously it's gone through archives and stuff like that as well. So when it comes to, you know, finding this information, obviously if you're doing an older subject, like, you know, when we started with the HUO hopper and stuff like that, we go to the preserved railway, we measure it up, and you're dealing with preservation groups who are real enthusiasts, and they're fantastic to deal with. Most of the time they're absolutely brilliant, and they will give you access, they'll tell you all about it, they'll move it for you into a certain position. You know, we've dealt with so many different preservation groups that have really helped us. I mean, we dealt with the Delta Preservation Society doing the Deltics, and like we went to Barrow Hill, and the access they gave us and all the information they've given us, they, you know, they helped us record the digital sound with ESU as well, and they gave us access to the Deltics for a day, and that's great fun. Like, I mean, we got cab rides in the Deltic, and we obviously got to climb all over them in a very safe way and controlled way. They're very professional. But it was fantastic to be up so close to them. And it's something that you never think you'd do until you actually go in and work in the industry. But it becomes your job as well. You become professional, but you do get that moment where you're, oh, wow, this is really fun and really cool. And when it comes to the TOCs, you know, some can be, well, who are you guys? And then obviously you have to go through the process of explaining who you are and what your goal wants to be. But we found them very helpful. Obviously, again, it's real railway, and they take that very serious, like preservations do. They're very keen on safety and procedure and all that kind of stuff. And preservation lines in the UK and centres are run fantastic professional standards. Because a lot of the people who are involved and work in TOCs as well. So you can sometimes find you know, you talk to someone that's like, oh, I work for X, Y, or Z. So you get to know someone that way, and they'll tell you to talk to. We've talked to wagon manufacturers around the HYAs, and you know, those guys really helped us out as well. So sometimes you'll get drawings, sometimes you'll get access to measure something up. But what we try to do is we always try and get drawings, and we always verify with measurements, because what we have found, and it's caught people out before, you know, the drawing office, what happens in there and what happens in the manufacturing can change. You know, somebody might say, right, this needs to be X measurement, or it needs to curve a certain angle. And then when the guys who are manufacturing them were putting them together, especially with older diesels and stuff like that, because there's so many complex curves, they go, right, that's not going to work that way. We'll temper it this way, we'll build it this way. So it's always, you know, the whole kind of measure twice, cut once kind of thing. So that's where you kind of double up on and just kind of have double standard or double set of measurements or triple set of measurements. You know, we measured, I can't remember which locomotive it was, but we measured two, and around one area, the measurement, there was like, you know, 3 or 4 inches in difference, even though it's the same locomotive. And then obviously we look back in the research and we realized, well, one was rebuilt after a crash. So that's where you just have to, again, you look at the history of that particular locomotive, you say, right, well, that wasn't the best one to measure, we'll, you know, measure another one and stuff like that as well. So we found with the TOCs and stuff like that, you know, once obviously we can have our safety passes and all that kind of stuff, and we take the proper precautions and we're professional, they request, you know, not to publish any photos and stuff like that as well, obviously, because it's the workplace and all that kind of stuff. and we're always very understanding and receptive of that, and then we build a relationship with them. So yeah, we've not come across anyone who said flat out no. Yeah, sometimes they might need a little persuasion because we're new, we're not called Hornby or stuff like that, but no, they've been really fantastic help, both preservationists, museums, and the TLCs.
The railway modelling has seen quite a boom in popularity due to the pandemic causing everyone to stay indoors. Has this translated into an increase in sales and pre-orders for the Accurascale products, or has it had a negative effect at all?
When March happened, obviously that's when it first kicked in, and I think the world kind of stopped for a couple of weeks or maybe a week or so. And obviously it's one of those moments, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know how this is going to play out, you don't know just how bad or manageable COVID is going to be. So sales took a bit of a hit in March 2020, and then we went into April and we had our best month ever on record by quite a margin, as people obviously found themselves at home and they were looking to do whether work on the layout, modelling projects, or they wanted some new stock to run to pass the time. And ever since then, our sales have really increased. So we had a really good 2020, and we had lots of exciting new models come online and stuff like that as well, which obviously helps. But it was, it was a really good year for us in the sense of sales. So in that sense, it was great. I think where we've all kind of suffered is we always really enjoyed doing shows in the UK and exhibitions, and it's just to meet customers and modelers face to face and just kind of give updates on new models and stuff like that. And because we have a constant stream of stuff coming out that we want to show people, we're always very visible about showing our first samples and keeping people informed and stuff like that. But we missed out on Alexandra Palace in March, and then obviously Worley and the Great Electric Train Show. We like to bring our stand there and just show off what we're working on recently, and people can see it and they see, right, well, this project is progressing. I think that's kind of where somewhere where we've suffered a bit, because not everyone is online, not everyone reads the magazines and stuff like that. They might just like going to shows. So hopefully that returns. I think from a communications point of view, that's kind of where all manufacturers have suffered a little bit. It's not being able to have that really good one-to-one interaction with modelers and customers. So hopefully, we all get our inoculations and we all get our jabs, and we start getting back to normal. And whether it's later in 2021 or early 2022, we start doing shows again, because we really miss that as well.
Has Accurascale done anything specifically to benefit from the increased interest in the hobby due to the pandemic?
That's a tough one. We just adapted to it really, and we pushed our lines. So we considered customers, our modelers who are sitting at home, kind of, well, what do they want to do? Well, we push we do a lot of model detail parts and our buffer stops and stuff like that. And they sold fantastically well because people are working on upgrade projects and modeling projects. The problem with the model railway industry is if you want to make any product, you're talking at least 18 months gestation between start and end. So it's very hard to instantly react to something like that, because by the time you've reacted to it, you're kind of, you're hoping it's gone. But even so, if we reacted in March, we still wouldn't have our reaction product prepared till then. So we what we did was more of in communications point of view, we sent out more emails to keep in touch. We ramped up our social media a bit as where we could. We worked a lot with kind of the media, and we do some stuff with the likes of Hornby magazine. We're doing a lot more social media videos and stuff like that as well. So we're giving them closer previews and stuff like that of our pre-production models, which then more people, they have really good reach. People are seeing that as well. So it was kind of trying to get the message out of here's new models coming and when they're coming, and here they are in operation. And we've been able to work with the kind of media outlets to do that as well. So that's where we've tried to adapt. But if you were to, we'll bring out a new product, work with in this COVID situation, it's very difficult to do that because of such a long lead time on any. And you're talking 12 to 18 months on a wagon alone. Where like even a power model, you're talking 2 years is the gestation period, as we found out. So we did kind of ramp up our communications and marketing around it, but say releasing a product and getting something out there, it kind of doesn't really work that way, unfortunately.
Is there anything you could tell us about your method for selecting wagons or locos to manufacture?
Yeah, it's a number of factors. Sometimes you just go with your gut and you think, well, I really liked this model, and you do your research on it and you see how many were built, where they were operated, and you bring in factors, have they ever done ready to run before? Was there kit? How many of them were built? How long did they last? Is that a period that's popular? What we tend to do now is there's a group of maybe 4 or 5 of us, and we put together suggestions every year, and we do a briefing document on it, and we do kind of some high level research on it. So just kind of areas of operation. Again, is there a competitor's model? If there is a competitor's model, is it something that could be upgraded? And is it, does it need a new generation model to go with it? Is it something that can complement what's an existing range? So what we tend to do is we tend to put those documents together. We have a planning meeting maybe twice a year. We sit down and we go through it all, and then we kind of filter it down and select, right, we will do X, Y, and Z, and then that builds into our schedule over the next 3 to 5 years. And then, and we have, say, our group ones that we might refer to in 6 months' time, and then that builds into a top choice. So that's kind of how we do it. And then we have some that we just keep in reserve, just in case if somebody, if we're planning, well, we could do that model, but we won't get to it for another 18 months to 2 years. A competitor could announce that in the meantime, so we'll drop that and then put something else into the list as well. But we're constantly looking, we're constantly suggesting. Where, if someone comes down to, oh, I always really like that loco, I always really like that wagon, and you kind of start your process from there. Then we pitch it to each other and we see, is it commercially viable? But at the end of the day, all models have to be commercially viable. There's so much stuff we want to make, and it's a lot more than, our resources, through manpower or whatever it would allow us. And obviously, it's a very expensive process to create a model. So there's a lot more that we would like to build that we can actually build, but we will, manufacture what we can. And obviously we'll get to everything on our list if someone else doesn't beat us to it over the next 5 or so years. So that's the plan, really, where we're going with that.
That's the long-term plan for Accurascale, is it? Have you got a more specific long-term plan? What's next for Accurascale?
Our long-term plan really is to continue doing what we're doing now, but we need to grow into other parts of the market. And obviously, something we get asked about a lot is like, will you ever do a steam locomotive? Because we've been fairly more focused from, say, the late 50s, early 60s onwards, so it's modernisation plan up to the present day. Steam is something that was kind of, we have interest in it, and we do like steam, but the research is a bit more nuanced, and it's a whole different discipline to kind of modern stuff you can ring up. Can I go and measure X, Y, and Z? Some of the stuff in steam are like no longer exists, hasn't been around for a long time. Photos are harder to find because obviously it's not digital, all that kind of stuff. But Paul joined us recently from Hornby as a project manager, and he has a wealth of experience in research and steam projects, and we are working on kind of stuff in that era, in pre-1950s and further back. And so that's another area where we're going to expand. We want to be able to have something to offer for everyone, so not just kind of as it's the horrible term modern image, but anyone from kind of the transition period up to present day. We want to go back and offer people, stuff around the stuff around the big four, pre-grouping, and kind of for, around that era as well, and just really expand that. We're also looking at more O-gauge products, and we're working on several O-gauge ideas at the moment, and it's very early days. And we've done one O-gauge wagon, and it sold reasonably well. And now O-gauge modelers are like, well, what's next for us? It's all double O. We did leave it for a while because we said, well, after our toe in the water, we'll see how it goes. But we do have ideas, and something's in the works for O-gauge, but we don't launch until we have our sample. And a sample can be anywhere between 6 months to a year to get to that stage. So we're at the early process for O-gauge now. So we're hoping that's something later this year, and we hope to obviously then build the O-gauge side of the business there as well, because we have an interest in O-gauge ourselves, and it is an interesting part of the market. So that's kind of where we're looking to grow over the next few years. It's basically to offer something for everyone. We have a very ambitious program, and it's, our whole thing is to really get up there among the bigger manufacturers and kind of offer our unique way of doing things.
Thank you, Fran. That's all. Have you got any closing words?
No, I just hope everyone is, all your listeners are staying safe, keeping well, and we really look forward to seeing you at a show sometime soon. And obviously check out our website, accurascale.co.uk, sign up to our newsletter and just see what we're up to. And we really look forward to bringing more launches this year. And we, if you're interested in the Irish side, because it's a bit different, you might fancy something a bit different, it's irishrailwaymodels.co.uk. And we look forward to seeing you at a show very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.